whenever you guys are ready.
Keeping suspense. Okay.
All right.
Let me just introduce you really quickly.
Sure.
We have David here. He's going to be talking about web security. And again, this is the 3 o'clock session. Again, the fire drill was just a figment of your imagination. But
All right. Quick show of hands. How many people have exploited cross-site scripting and or SQL injection? No, I meant like legitimately with permission. No? Okay. Fewer hands. Okay. So for the rest of you, you're in the right spot. For those of you that this is old hat, well, I'm just going to show you an environment where you can play around and not get yourself in trouble. It's called the Web Security Dojo, your own personal web app fight club. And if you want to grab the PDF, that's fine. There are notes, maybe some technical notes for some of the demos down in the notes, but you won't see them unless you use a real PDF viewer, not your browser. All right, what is the Web Security Dojo and how do we get started? That's pretty much what we're going to talk about. They accidentally posted on the website a half-day, 4-hour hands-on class. If we were, in fact, having a 4-hour hands-on, this would be the first part. We would get this environment set up so y'all could hack your web apps. We don't need any untrusted CTF networks, it's just all local host. And so that's what we want to talk about, the environment. So essentially, after today's talk, you go home, you got the whole weekend, there you go. So if you have a device that makes noise, maybe put it on silent. And the question and answer protocol, I'd like to introduce people to this. It's similar to TCP in that it has a 3-way handshake. You raise your hand, I acknowledge you, you transmit your question. So, but it's also like UDP, it's an unreliable protocol, you're not guaranteed a response. So we'll try, it's QIP, it's patent pending, so we'll see if that works. And if I don't know the answer, Gian knows the answer. Legal disclaimer. Follow that link and you'll see the legal disclaimer from Liar Liar. Stop breaking the law. So yeah, just don't do that. And so if you learn something new and you're all excited, you think you're going to try it on your bank, please don't. Or use your brother-in-law's computer. Okay. A little bit about me. That's me stepping out of the monolith from 2001. Any Penn Staters? Woo! All right. I'll be sure to speak slow and use small words. No, I was just kidding. What? Jerk. Yeah, so I've been doing this for a bit, and I work for Maven Security. We do things. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's talk about Web Security Dojo. Spoiler alert, it's totally free, it's open source. We're looking for people to contribute. So it is the world's first and best self-contained open source environment for web application security penetration testing training. So essentially, you take a whole bunch of vulnerable web apps, fake storefronts and things, and you put them all together in a single VM, along with the tools that are commonly used to test, audit, exploit web applications. You sprinkle in some documentation, and you have the Web Security Dojo. And it was developed by myself and some coworkers over the many years because we would go to a conference, shady things going on in the network. We're like, you know what? We just need to be able to hand people a VM and just do the training rather than plugging into a network. So that's what started the Web Security Dojo many years ago. So it comes in 2 flavors. For the masses, there's a pre-installed VM, an OVA file, industry standard, hopefully just import into your virtual machine player of choice. And there's also a script file that you can run, and it'll just download packages over top of Ubuntu. So you can roll your own, see how we do it, or you could just use the virtual machine. Its biggest selling point is that you're ready to go. Dive right into the training. What is this SQL injection you speak of? You don't have to worry about configuring numerous man-in-the-middle proxy tools who all are contending for some reason for port 8001, or 8080. So we've deconflicted all the tools and everything just works nicely. So you have Zap, you've got Burp, you've got several tools, and we've put them on separate ports. So when you get in there, you can just get right to the subject rather than setting everything up. And so that you can find it at dojo.mavensecurity.com, which will lead to SourceForge. It's that old. I know we're not cool enough to be on GitHub or Bitbucket, so we're still on SourceForge. And so, but all the links are at the dojo.mavensecurity.com. And it's brought to you mostly by Maven, but we are looking for contributors, especially if you have any area expertise in source code analysis. We'd like to put on some source code targets where you would analyze the source code and patch it, things like that. But right now it's mostly all just what you would think of with web apps testing, scanning for SQL injection and common flaws found on the OWASP top 10. So unfortunately, no one can be told what the dojo is. You simply have to see it for yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and just dive on into my VM. The install process is real easy. You just download a giant file. It's called a .ova. Once you have a virtual machine player installed, you double-click the OVA file, and it just imports into your player, which I already did earlier. And I hit the start button, and now I've got my little VM. And I am going to take the, what is it, the red pill? Which one? I'm going to dive into this. I'm going to go full screen. And so I'm just going to hit my my host key, which is down in the lower right corner. It's the right control key. I'm going to hit that, and F for full screen. Right? And away goes my host operating system, and now I'm inside this virtual machine, which is Ubuntu. X-Ubuntu, actually. And it's a little lighter weight. And here we go. All right. This is the Web Security Dojo. So what you have up in the System menu, and there's notes in the slides that kind of outline some of this, but I just want to show you. You've got all your lovely targets. Some of them require extra memory, things like that, so they're not started by default. You have to go in here and start them up. So for example, let's go to the casino. Let's start up the casino. So this will start the process up, start up a web server, and it will redirect our browser. This is a customized version of Hack Me Casino, made a little bit more family friendly for those of you who remember when this first came out. So we spiced it up. We de-spiced it so we could use it in Utah. So there used to be a skimpy, whatever. So there's a target right there, and so that's one of the things that Dojo has, along with spoilers, documentation. Little word of advice: don't go straight for the documentation. All right, go through the exercises. Don't go straight to the answer, because then you end up with false confidence. You're like, I really know how to do this, when there's step-by-step guides. Yeah, it's not going to help you. But if you give up or you don't want to double check, you can certainly open these up. And some of them are better than others. This document's pretty decent, and it walks you through all of the various flaws. Obviously, it's an older target, and it walks you through some of the challenges that are built into this. So some of the targets are simulating real applications. Other targets are, in fact, a little bit more conducive to education, because they sort of guide you through a little bit. For example, WebGoat NG. This is another one that has to start up to conserve memory, and it just tells you right there you can log in as guest. I've already done that, so my browser has it. And it kind of walks you through the environment, and let's see, I think there's a generic, you just follow they want to show you how there's various things, like you can show hints, you can show the solution, you can look at the source code underneath in case you want to try to figure out why it's vulnerable from that. But in the end, if and when you complete the lesson, you get a little green check mark. Yay! So it's gamified. It's not quite badges, but it's cool, right? And I believe there's an admin interface to this particular target called WebGoat, where you could roll it out to a classroom of students and sort of track everyone's score. But in this case, Web Security Dojo is designed just for sort of standalone, one student. There's no centralized scoreboard for this yet, but maybe there should be for a classroom of students. All right, so that's one target. Lots of targets, but targets are nice, but we need wares. And so it's under Tools. And so here are all the tools preloaded. Hey, how come you didn't include X, Y, Z? Well, this is more than you need, quite frankly. I mean, if you've got, Perl, Python, and Burp Suite, or we'll do Zap since it's open source. I said that this was all open source. That's not quite true. Burp Suite is not open source, but we do have permission to redistribute the free version. So we'll start up the Open Web Application Security Project Z-Attack Proxy as a tool. And what we're going to do with this, I'm going to introduce you to some various security concepts. I'm just going to show you SQL injection and cross-site scripting, and how to sort of explore that within this environment. Well, let's see, what else is worth noting about the dojo? I want to go back to my slides, which I've conveniently preloaded into... Where did I preload that? I thought I had it in here somewhere. I do. I have it inside the VM so I don't have to switch out. Oh, I see. It's probably... Huh. Go back to the slides and see what we're missing. Oh, great. And so these are some of the things I'm skipping over, but when you go back and you download the slides, this kind of walks you through some key features of the dojo. And so trying to think what's new and exciting. So we have, like I said, it's Ubuntu 16. It is now 64-bit operating system, which helps you with some of the tools like Burp Suite. Has some features that will only work. Anyway, there's a changelog up on SourceForge as to what's new. To me, the most exciting thing is the ability to, snap, So when you start tools, like, say, let's start up, already started Zap, where is it? Oh, here it is. I can, because you want to do this in real life anyway, just put stuff side by side or preferably have multiple monitors. You've got your browser, you've got your man-in-the-middle proxies, you've got stuff you're taking notes on. So if you're in this line of work and you don't have multiple monitors, I will write you a doctor's note for your boss to sign off on that. So it is a requirement. All right, so I keep losing track of the slides. There we go. So let's talk about cross-site scripting for a moment. All right, so simply put, cross-site scripting is where a user sends malicious data and it reflects back off the server to them. You say, well, who would do that? Who would literally hack themselves? Well, the attacker tricks the victim into sending the data. That's a reflected attack where I post a link and say, oh, you should really click this link. So they click it, and it goes off to some kludgy web app that takes that user's input that's somewhere in that request, reflects it back to the victim, and does bad things. So the user literally hacks himself. They don't know it. That's the reflected attack. And kind of looks a little bit like this. We'll talk about some other kinds of attacks in a moment. So here's this simple example where you do a query for a term. You say, hey, I'm looking for the term John. It says, oh, there's lots of results for that. But if the search term looks a lot like JavaScript, the website reflects back and says, oh, you just searched for, and when the browser gets to that little bit of text that looks just like JavaScript, well, it is JavaScript, so your browser doesn't render it, it executes it because it loves code. That's what it's made for. Modern browsers won't, well, IE and Chrome, don't like this so much. They protect you. They make it easier to be a bad web app coder by stopping this kind of stuff. But it works fine in Firefox. So, but as a simple example, that's a reflected cross-site scripting. And the idea is you would not simply do a stupid alert box, but if you were an attacker, you would send remote script. And in that little, just whatever that is, 25 characters, you could jam a whole lot of badness. And in fact, there's the browser exploitation framework that's all injects if you can inject JavaScript into somebody's browser, it hooks their browser, and you can maintain persistence as they open new tabs, and you can do all sorts of bad things. In fact, what was it Bad Rabbit that was using some JavaScript as well, injected like this? Does anyone know? Well, then take my word for it. Okay. If you go to, openbugbounty.org, you can see a whole list of websites that are known to be vulnerable to cross-site scripting as part of an open bug bounty. So there's lots of impacts. Besides reflected, there's an even worse case scenario where you don't send the data, it's already there waiting for you, like in a forum, somebody posts something. Well, first, let me show you reflected real quick. So let's see if we can find reflected and exploit it using the tools that we have at hand. So let me go to the home page here. Welcome to the dojo. And there's a convenient links. All of these targets are ready to go. You don't need to fire them up. So we're just going to surf to DVWA. There's a young person present, so I will say it's called the Darn Vulnerable Web App. Okay. That's that. I'm going to log into this, and this is one of those more educational ones where it's obvious, like what vulnerability you're going to find. You're going to find reflected cross-site scripting right here. My name is Maven, and it repeats it, so you say, oh, I bet I could put in a piece of script, and simple alert box. We've literally, finding this during assessments, we flag it, they fix it, we go back, and we find out that they're literally just blocking the alert command. And it's just like, okay, well, I don't know, I'm getting paid either way, but, there's the prompt command, there's all sorts of ways that badness can happen, where we're just injecting simple script. But again, this is not the issue. This is just for demonstration testing purposes. It's when you can inject, remote code in here, a remote source. And so maybe we'll take a look at that in a moment. But the question is, rather than doing this manually, can we find a tool that'll do it automatically? So I wanted to introduce you to Zap real quick. Let's just search for something normal. All right, so this is part of the magic of Dojo, Web Security Dojo, is that we have little tools built in to let you go ahead and proxy your browser traffic automatically through Z-Attack proxy. Okay, so we're now going through that. Zap is on the right-hand side of the screen. That right side. And let's see, my name is David. And lo and behold, we're capturing traffic down here. Let me go full screen on this. We can see that traffic was captured. Tools like this are useful for an auditor, tester. You're not really tricking a victim into going through your man in the middle at this point. This is just for doing assessments. You can have your browser trust this tool's certificate generation process, so when you surf encrypted sites, you don't get any warnings because you've trusted the CA that this tool generates. We haven't enabled that quite yet for this. I mean, you could do it manually, but I'm not going to waste time. All of the targets on Dojo are currently unencrypted. So, let's see, where is that request that I searched for my name? I told them. These tools were not designed by UI experts, by the way, so, what are you going to do? Oh, interesting. I don't even see the traffic at all. That's unfortunate. Let me try again. Hi, Bob. All right, so here's the request where I searched, and so I want to know, is this particular request vulnerable? So in this particular tool, Zap, you can just right-click, select audit or attack, depending on how you're getting paid, and we could do an active scan. And you can just click it. And under the alerts tab, or you can hit this little, oh, it's too late, it's already done, it's so fast, it's my local host, it's not very congested with traffic, I suppose, so it's over before you know it, but it ran all of these various plugins and extensions that do various kinds of checks. This is what we call low-hanging fruit. If you don't pass this kind of scanner attack, somebody wasn't trying on the coding side. But let's go under alerts, and sure enough, it flagged it as cross-site scripting reflected. And I think you can double-click, and it will give you a little description of what the problem is, how to fix it, basically RTFM, and it points you to some resources down here. But it also kind of has a little proof of concept right there. So you can right-click, and you can say, you know what, can you do me a favor? There's a new feature in this latest version of Zap where you can just spawn sandbox browsers with their own cookie jar and automatically trust the certificate so there's no more pesky warnings for encrypted sites. But we can't necessarily do that for this target because this target is authenticated. So if we try it, let's see, open in Firefox, we will hit the login page because we don't have any cookies. It's a clear cookie jar. So, well, eventually that will open. I suppose once I authenticate, I can then use this browser. Oh, wait, it wasn't guess. It was admin password. Hey, that's my login. All right. So let's try that again. Open in browser. We'll use Firefox. If each one is sandbox, that would be impressive. It is. Wow. Well, forget that. So I'm just going to use the system browser. I need to see if this actually did exploit. So let me just say open in system browser. And it uses all my cookies. I'm authenticated to this application. Bam. Okay, yeah, that's definitely reflected cross-site scripting. No problem. That is a valid finding. I suppose if it wasn't, we could go in here and mark it, as a false positive. So that's simple reflected cross-site scripting. Now, how much would you pay? But wait, there's more. There's persistent cross-site scripting. This is where the attacker, goes into an application and submits data that other users are going to see eventually. The first thing I think of is a forum. You post some comments, and other people can see it. So let's play the role of the attacker for a moment. Conveniently go to the lesson called Stored Cross-Site Scripting, and you know where this is going. Do you like JavaScript? Oh, wow. These fields are really small. I'm not sure. All right, so some free JavaScript. All right. Script. Just put in another, put an alert box again if we want. Now here's the thing. If you were scanning this right off the bat, you'd scan it. Oh, it does reflect back immediately. It doesn't happen. But anyway, it's sitting right there, and any victim who goes to this page is going to get hit by it. So, we can go to Quick Start, and we can launch Chrome, and we can go to this site and trigger it. Targets.local. Did you mean targets.local? Yeah, I did. That's why I typed it. All right. Admin password. So we're going here. We go to this stored. And, it's interesting. So it seems like the very last one. Okay, yeah. So normally you would have to click on a forum post to open it. But in this case, yeah, it just triggers anybody going to this. So why is persistent so bad? Because all of your victims, by definition, are fully authenticated. And it could be that the victim is an admin, that the data you've implanted appears in a back-end queue like a feedback queue. Somebody submitted a trouble ticket. Let's read what they have to say. Bam, it's JavaScript. or other client-side code, but mostly JavaScript. This is a screenshot of an actual WebGoat exercise on persistence. Back-end systems that's the worst case scenario. But how are you going to know if you're scanning and you can't see the end result? So that's something some of these free tools don't necessarily handle off the bat, or at least the ones inside of Dojo. But there's commercial tools that'll do that, where they'll put in a web beacon as the plant, and they'll just wait for the victim to trigger that little request to an image that's specially marked. So when the request goes in, your scanner knows, well, that was when I injected this URL for this form element. And therefore, we know exactly where the vulnerability is. I believe the Netflix security team released a tool several years back. Does anyone remember what it was called? Sleepy Puppy. And, which I thought was cool. And I guess the idea is these things are sleeping in the background. An admin gets into the admin console and triggers these little, nothing more than web bugs, really, web beacons, typically used by marketers to track you from the cradle to the grave. But in this case, we can see that the idea is if I can implant even HTML, I could have probably implanted JavaScript or something else. So that would have affected an admin. So that's the worst case scenario. Something as simple as this. Yeah, this will write up your own little piece of code to make your own, or use Sleepy Puppy. Again, this is where the notes on the slides come in handy. I can't. But if you download the PDF, there's some references. Write your own. How to manually test. Not going to talk about that. And the quick way is just to use Zap. I just showed you that very quickly. Just kind of scan through. Because there's just too many form elements. And sometimes form elements, it's user input, but you wouldn't consider it user input. But ultimately it's getting logged somewhere and someone's generating a report and they're processing data that came from your browser or from your tool. And so fuzz all the things. Fuzz meaning, to inject noise into a system, hoping to produce an error. It's an old, analog reverse engineering technique, black box testing. So fuzz all the things. You want to inject all the things, and that's where the scanners come in handy to automate some of that. And I think I've already shown you this demo. I showed you how you can open it in the system browser versus open in browser. And those are both new inside of Zap. Oh, you say, well, this is lame, man. I'm elite. I've seen every episode of Mr. Robot twice, yo. So what do you got for me? Well, you can literally go down and you can go to the security setting. It's too bad websites aren't really like this, where you could say, hey man, we better set the security to high. And now, the little script kiddie textbook, if I ever see one more alert box, I'm going to puke example, does not work. Oh no. When can I, okay. Oh, it doesn't work, man. And so if you want to exercise your PHP source code analysis skills, this particular target is helpful because they show you, we're gonna match and replace all these things. Oh, okay. And then you could try to figure it out. There might be a way to get past it. There probably is. And then, he said that, this level should be totally secure. And if you find a flaw, you should definitely contact him. But, you could set it. Let's set it to medium. Reflected. Let's see if Zap can get past medium level security. Let's search for David. So we captured the request in our man in the middle. Just in case I probably blew past that, we're proxying. All of our traffic is going through this tool sitting right next to us. So we can see it all come and go. It's like matrix time. You can slow down the traffic and kind of manipulate it. So you can stop it outright. In this case, we're just letting it flow, and we're going to replay it. But we could literally stop it and manipulate it before it even leaves our network card, right? And so, but I'm not going to do that. Let's find the traffic under history. It'll be towards the end. Oh, beef. Oops. Wyatt. Uh-oh. I think I forgot that some of yeah, okay. There's some there's some bad code hidden here. I forgot, and so it's beaconing out to yeah. So that's what this is. ET's phoning home. We've clearly been compromised. Forgot about that. I'll show you that later. Let me see if I can filter based on... Can I do... Let's kill that. All right. Wonder why we're still doing that. Oh, this one. Nice. So here we have a request. I want to see if it's vulnerable on medium, active scan. I really could select the policy to be just cross-site scripting, but we'll just scan for all the things. And that was pretty quick. That's actually done already. Let's go under alerts. And I don't think it found it the second time through. There's only one instance of it here. There should probably be two. Here's our original request. So yeah, I don't think this will work anymore. If we do open in system browser, their demo is not going to work anymore. So we look at the source code and see how they fixed it. Oh, and they replaced the word script with they just blank it out. Oh, okay. But they only do that once. So, okay. I'll just put in script, and I'm going to interrupt myself with script, because they're going to remove that for me. That's awfully convenient. And alert. I got to fix that typo here. But essentially, when we've seen this before, where they're removing. Oh, we're going to filter out things. But we're not going to do it in an iterative way, and we're just going to remove it and put your string back together. I forget what blue means, but okay, 20 minutes, 10 minutes. All right, so let's do that. And oh, hey, it still works because they filtered out the thing for me. So lots of bad defenses. You can play with that. Get your foo on. Let's move on. Blah, blah, blah. SQL injection. Yeah. This is where we make the Benjamins. Okay. Essentially, user input is going to make its way eventually, in some cases, to a database call, structured query language. If we can manipulate it such that our data fits in and modifies the logic, the syntax of that statement, well, we can interact with the database, perhaps. Plenty of ways to fix this, but what are we on? 17 years, I think, since SQL injection became discovered and discussed, and it's still helping me pay the bills. So, all right, we haven't fixed it yet. Here's an example of a SQL statement calling the check if a user and username and password match. Maybe during a login. And some clever cricket looked at this and said, "Well, wait a minute. What if my UID doesn't just equal regular text, but I include a single quote, which is a meta character in the context of SQL, right? It's a special character that has significance." Or 1 = 1 --. So you take this in red, this is a standard type of lookup, and you add the bad data in green, and lo and behold, you're saying select star from users where user ID equals blank, which is like nobody, so this is going to fail, or true. False or true is true. Dash dash means, oh, just ignore the rest of that stuff. I don't even know what that is. And this is called SQL bypass, SQL login bypass. It has the pesky habit of allowing you to basically log in as the first user in the database, which tends to be the administrator. Whoops. So, SQL injection's hard. There was a tool that came out, I can't remember what it was called, but the guy really went to town on the documentation, and he had like 4 pages of schematics, of schema, of how first you do this and then you do that, and how his tool was kind of automating this process of figuring out whether it was vulnerable to SQL injection and how to exploit it. But that's hard, you know. So we're just going to use tools, and I'm going to show you a quick tool. I only have a few minutes to do it, so we probably should just get to it. Check the notes on manual things that you can do, but I'm all for leveraging the tools. Essentially, I want to introduce you to your new best friend. Remember, you need permission in writing to use some of this stuff. But the number one choice is SQL map. There's no number 2. It's SQL map, or you have a DBA right there. Who knows how to type really fast? Because SQL map automates a lot of it, and it's smarter than you in most cases. So let me show you what that looks like. First, can we find SQL injection in one of our targets? Probably, since there's an exercise called SQL injection right there. No, we can do blind. It doesn't... Well, that's weird. Submit. Huh. Okay, so we're just performed some sort of request legitimately, but we captured it because we're proxying everything. We go to this tool and say, hey, you know that request I just made? Where was it? SQL injection. Oh, it's a post request. Hey, can you do me a favor and can you just like attack this for me? Let's see. Submit ID. I got to click on it, right click, and say, hey, attack this. Tell me if it's vulnerable. And spoiler alert, it's vulnerable to SQL injection, which is probably why it's under. Yeah, and it shows you. It even tells you. It even pulls out some intel and says it's MySQL 5.0, and some various other things, and the exact context of how it was able to exploit it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this legitimate request. Ooh, not that one. Dang. I don't want that. I want history. Okay, I want this one. And I want to save it to a text file. Save as raw. Request. The whole request, not just the headers, not just the body, but both. And let's just call it conveniently, well, I'm going to call it that. Save it. Yeah. So I'm going to save it into a text file and feed it to a tool. I have a command line here. SQL map. Remember, kids, get your parents' permission before using SQL map. Oh, that's funny. I can't actually find it. So we'll go under Tools, and Tools will open up. We'll open up a command line and show you right where it's at. So, okay, so we got SQL map, and I'm going to read in a file, and I believe it was here. What was it called again? SQLi raw, and I want it to list the databases, a DBS. And so it's going to, listen, if you don't remember anything else, when SQL map asks you a question, just accept the default, unless you're really sure you know what you're doing. But we have encountered plenty of cases where some thoughtful consideration, you disagree with it and you get better results. But those are far and few between. It looks like it's MySQL. Do you want to skip testing other payloads? I'm sorry, I resized the screen, but the default answer is in caps. So yes, For the remaining tests, do you want me to include all tests for MySQL, and that ups the level or the number of things to test for, and it maybe increases the riskiness of some of the tests? I'm okay with risky testing on my loop back here. So yes. And it goes through and it tries a bunch of things, and eventually slowly, not so slowly, figures out exactly how it's vulnerable, and it pulls out a list of the databases that are on this box. Oh, hey, there's a parameter called IE, it's vulnerable. Do you want to keep testing the others? Nah, I only need one. You have to defend all. I only need to find one. Oh, hey, so there we go. And it tells you how it's vulnerable. And here's the databases. You know what? I want the database called DVWA. And I want to list all the tables. There's two tables, guestbook and users. I want the table users. And I want to dump all the things. Oh, it says, oh, hey, you know, you can't really see it, but it says that it thinks it found some hashes. Do you want to store them for offline processing? No, because it's going to offer to process them right now. Hit yes, and it cracks the passwords. Ta-da! And so that was a little fast because I had run it earlier. Otherwise, it would have taken like a whole 30 seconds. And so it not only pulled the data out of the database, it took the hashes and ran them through a simple password cracker against trivial type of passwords, and was able to find the clear text password out of the hash, the unsalted hashes. Anywho, lots of cool stuff in the notes. Always follow their advice, da-da-da-da-da. In conclusion, break the web app, walk away. It's that simple, folks. Download, play with Dojo. There's a lot of cool targets and guides. So just have your own, one-man CTF this weekend. And feel free to contribute or, tell us how we can make it better. That's pretty much it. That's all I've got. Are there any questions?
Yeah, let's give a round of applause. BSidesPhilly, Ron Falls, David. We do have time for maybe one or two questions. Anyone with a question?
Check. Okay. So for any of the cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, like reflected or stored, could you elaborate a little more on what kind of impact that could have, rather than just displaying the alert box? Like,
right.
Would it send off the user's credentials to a server? Would it like infect their computer with malware? What could you do? What's the
right.
most you could do with that?
The impact from cross-site scripting, especially if it's persistent or even if it's not, there's a tool on here called Beef, the Browser Exploitation Framework. I think it was already running, but so it can basically become a man in the middle on the browser and track the victim. So if they're an administrator, you can start sort of controlling their browser and seeing what they see, and basically you're now inside the firewall if it's an admin that you've injected into. So it can be bad, very bad, depending on the level of the victim. So, but it's a lot worse than most people think, maybe because the demos are always a little pop-up, rather than man in the middle, which I didn't get to show. But there are frameworks out there. Bad Rabbit supposedly was doing something like this, hooking your browser. So even when you open up new tabs, it's still injecting those tabs as well and kind of tracking you, unless you shut down the entire browser. And then there's other persistence techniques as well. Was there another question? Oh, young lady right here.
You know how there's Zap and Burp Sweep and things like that? If it didn't tell you which one to use for each challenge, how could you find out which one is the best to use?
Well, the best tool is your brain. And stay in school. No, so it's whatever you want to use. Burp Suite doesn't really get great until it's the paid version. The free versions doesn't do that auto-scanning thing that Zap does. But in the end, those are only helpful for finding low-hanging fruit. If it's a very critical function, you should manually be looking at the traffic asking yourself, what could I do? How could this be exploited even from a business logic perspective? Things like that. So scanners only cover certain things. But when in doubt, use Burp Suite.
Yeah, let's give another round of applause to David. On behalf of the BSidesPhilly team, here's a challenge coin. Thanks again for your talk. I think I'm smarter from the talk. Thanks a lot.
Okay, that's real. All right. Thank you, guys. All right, I'll be here if you have any other questions. But there's another speaker, right?
Yeah, we've got...
No.